Laura, can you tell us what you see, in terms of career paths for young people who want to get into publishing?
Yes, yeah. Well, first of all, there's three areas of book publishing, and so we're putting the newspapers and magazines aside for the moment, but we're talking about book publishing. So this is a physical book or an ebook or whatever. And there's three major areas. One is editorial. This is if you want to be an editor at a book publishing house and work with authors, or be in, we'll come back to that, or you want to be an author. That's, a very important part of book publishing, obviously. And then the third part is the literary agent, and how do these three exist now? The first thing I'm going to say, if you're an aspiring writer, understand that you probably have absolutely nothing to say until you've lived a bit in the world. I myself have published 16 books. I was a full-time novelist for 25 years. But when I graduated from school, I really had not too much to say. But after I worked in New York and LA for 8 years, I had some life experiences, enough to create one novel, and then that was how I started, in book publishing as a writer. And I did that, for a long time. Now, so that's the author. If you're going into school, please understand, this has nothing to do with the caliber of your writing. It is true in yesteryear you could write something like less than zero and get published while you were in college, but that was an entirely different era, and that's no longer the case. So if you're a writer, what I want you to do is get out and get some life experience so that you have something to offer people in your writing. If you're writing, okay. How about you want to be a book editor? I think book publishers are good places for aspiring writers to work as well. But the one thing you need to know about book publishing is that it is still an apprenticeship business, meaning I don't care how bright you are, you graduate from college, you don't know anybody. You don't know best-selling writers, you don't know agents to submit books to you. And what you want to do is to get a job with an editor who's very happening, because you're going to answer the phone and you're going to do cover for that editor. And what happens is, when you're an assistant to an editor, you learn everybody, you meet everybody they know. Okay, so for example, when in my first job in publishing at Doubleday, I met Liza Minnelli, I met Jackie Onassis, of course she worked at Doubleday, but I met all the top agents at William Morris, at CAA, didn't matter where it was, but I just answered the phone. Well, the thing is, years later, when I was being an editor too, I could call an agent like William Morris and say, oh, remember me, I'm Laura Van Wormer, I worked for Sandy Richardson. They said, oh, right, we remember you. It's like people will take your phone call. And in book publishing, as an editor, you're only as good as your contacts. You're only as good as the submissions that come into you at the office. And again, when you're coming out of college, there's no reason for anybody to want to do business with you because you're of no use to them. So you do your apprenticeship. You read the correspondence. If you want to be an editor, you should be reading Publishers Weekly inside and out every single week, because a lot of it you're not going to understand, because a lot of it will be about book distribution and terms with Amazon or Barnes & Noble or independent bookstores. But what happens is that it washes over you and you don't even know how much you're learning by osmosis. It's a huge, complicated industry. The more that the names, you start recognizing names of the movers and shakers, of the major agents, the major publishers, the more valuable you are. Now, why is an editor going to hire you? And this is going to absolutely flip people out. In the old days, publishing houses had internships. So that if you were some rich kid and you belonged to your parents belonged to the Locust Valley Country Club or Weyburn in Darien, which my parents did, but they didn't help me. You had connections, you could get a job as an intern, at the house and they would put you in, the training program, and you'd work in each department, like publicity and editorial, marketing, subsidiary rights. And then they would, when there was a job opening, you had the first shot to get it. The internships they really don't exist anymore at the houses because the houses are so small now. There was an old myth in book publishing that if you had connections, you could get in. I'm going to tell you this, I'm going to tell these kids and their parents right now. I don't care who your parents are. I don't care if you grew up on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. I don't care if you went to a community college. The one thing that is going to get you a job in book publishing or film or anything that's going to get you in the door are your ability to answer the phone and to be able to talk to people in a way that puts a good light on your boss, whether that's a book editor or a film producer or the head of a film studio, whoever it is. They always need somebody who gives good phone. Now, what does that mean? It means good manners. Okay? One of my first jobs at Doubleday was to go find Patty Hearst. She was over at Tiffany. And we had to get her from Tiffany to Doubleday, and she had to come down the back stairs. I know this sounds crazy, but the only reason why they sent me over there was because I knew how to talk to people, whether it was, Patty Hearst was she was going to inherit a lot of the Hearst newspaper empire. But they sent me over because I needed to arrange for a chauffeur. I needed a car. I needed to find her. I needed to deal with the people over at Tiffany to get up the freight elevator. In other words, I needed a lot of people's cooperation to get this woman out of there, down the back hall, and to Doubleday, and securely up to my boss's office. Sandy used to say the reason why he hired me was because he thought I could lie well on the phone on his behalf. That if he hadn't, if he was there and he didn't want to talk to somebody, he wanted me to be able to not hurt people's feelings, but stall for time. Okay? That means I can't get on the phone and say, well, listen, yous people, I'm gonna get Sandy to return your phone call. No, you have to learn sort of the King's English, or in this case, the Queen's English, meaning you need to be able to speak fairly well. You want to be the go-to person when there's a problem. Liza Minnelli. I met Liza Minnelli because she was coming in. They needed to get her up to our floor when there were thousands of people outside waiting for her to come. But you have to introduce yourself to Liza Minnelli or whoever it is. So you need to say, how do you do, Ms. Minnelli? You have to know how to talk to people and how to be polite. You want to be the go-to. If you're in film and you've got to go pick up a movie star somewhere, you got to be the one that your boss can trust that you can handle the situation. And that means knowing how it's appropriate to dress at the bottom of the hat. We're talking right now, we're shooting this in a literary agency. And in the closet, there are literary agent clothes. Nick has them, I have them. Meaning that if we have something that we need to go meet somebody very important, we have to change, because we know what the toolkit is. So when your parents, your mother or your grandfather or whoever it is has been yelling at you for years about your English language that you use, about how you hold a knife and fork, about how you just being polite to people, manners, holding the door open for somebody. It's so important. Not because it's going to get you where you want to go. It keeps people from dismissing you. It keeps them from saying, okay, no, they're no good. Like you have 100 people to choose from, and you're looking at all of them and how they're sitting in their chair or how they responded to you when you were talking to them. You don't want them to dismiss you. You always want to be in the running. And that's why I say, I don't care if you went to a community college. If you have good manners, you know how to, learn good manners. It's not that hard. And once you do that, you have the most valuable thing in your toolkit, whether you want to be a director or a book editor or a novelist. It doesn't matter. It will get you in the door.